welcome to the Whiskey Hour podcast, where our aim is to educate, innovate, and provide fact-based opinion on your favorite everyday topics. I'm your host, Phil Tross, and I'm joined with my brother, my battle buddy, Jay McLovin, Jason McMinn, a.k.a. Jay Smooth. How we going, bro?
Hey, I'm doing well. As you know, we are in current fight for our life right now. The Astros are, I'm speaking on. Tonight we play the Seattle Mariners. We're trying to get first place, Phil. I got 3 games in Seattle. I may or may not make it. I don't know, but it's going to be very intense, which is exactly why I'm glad we got our guest on today, Ron Felder, because I find that my relaxation comes when I listen to either A, music, or B, talk about food. And what a time to be alive, brother.
Hey, well, I mean, you already popped the big guest for him. Supposed to let it build up now, but it's a great time for sports. It's a great time for life. Got the Olympics going on, baseball's heating up, golf is even going strong right now, and it's a great time. The WNBA All Stars is going on right now as well. So it's a great time to be a sports fan. And like Jason said, we have a very special guest. Hey, without further ado, man, bring him on in, Jason.
All right.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
How y'all doing? Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, no, it's our pleasure to have you, man. So if you don't mind, just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself, man.
My name's Ron Felder. I'm 42 years old, and like he said, you know, ain't nothing make me happier than sports or talking about food. And I've played sports my entire life, and now I'm old and out of shape, so now I just get to cook. I'm on the other side of it now.
You know? Hey, listen, Bill, what you don't know about Ron Felder, the first time I ever met Ron, the man backed up this trailer. I swear it felt like a good country rock, man. I mean, we're talking about a good, and Phil, when I say back up, he never went left or right, stop, read. No, I mean, it was a smooth, straight back, up over meandering. I love that word, meandering driveway, a hard right, and it comes back, and it gets out and it says, "I'm here," and it's out. Phil, this is the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. This guy like 6'5", probably 300 easy pushing pounds. I'm thinking like, damn, if he wanted to whoop my ass, there's nothing damn thing I can do about it. And then he tells his wife, "Hey, pull it up in first gear." Philip, the man's 6'5", 300 pounds. His wife is barely 5 foot, small little thing. And I mean, I'm like, damn. He's so big and she's so small. But they were so great together. I mean, she didn't miss a beat with that truck, Phil. I mean, she pulled our asses. I mean, it was an incredible sight to see, brother.
Hey, with those skills, man, come join the Army. You got a bunch of trailers from the back up in the Army, man.
Yeah. That's just one of them country things. I mean, you got to be able to hunt, fish, and back up a trailer. They disown you pretty quick, you know what I mean?
So, hey, before I pass to Jason, man, and get this thing rolling. So, you know, obviously you're into grilling competition, right? So just tell us kind of how'd you get into that realm of food, that realm of cooking, and like where did it all originate from?
Just from an early age. I mean, just my heritage, my Cajun background and my Cajun family. I mean, that's just the way I was raised on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, Sunday was church and it was a meal after church, but Saturday it was meeting at somebody's house and somebody's lighting a fire and throwing something on and the kids are playing all day. And, you know, so that was just life. That was the norm. And as I got older, you know, it even goes to my, you know, what I do for a living nowadays, but I like taking something and, you know, you put your heart and soul into it and then you see everyone's enjoyment, you know, whenever they're eating, and, you know, and you've worked hard, spent, you know, umpteenth hours and money and this and that. And then you see the enjoyment on their face and it just makes it worth it. And then when I got out of high school, I had a lot of friends that were all like-minded, and you know, next thing you know, it was, well, man, your food's good enough. You know, you ought to try one of these competitions. And we grew up around all the county fairs and all the competitions, so it was like, well, let's just give it a try. And you learn real fast that, you know, there's different stages. You have your backyard griller, cooker, you know, and you might be the greatest thing in your neighborhood, but when you get out there with them competition guys, man, it's a different world. But, you know, now it's 20 years later. And, you know, I went from a backyard guy just cooking for my family to, you know, catering weddings and this and that to now, I mean, you know, at some competitions we might feed 200 people. So, I mean, I went from literally from the backyard to the, you know, the big cook-offs and everything in between. And now it's just a way of life for me and my family. It's always good, clean fun, always good people, no drama. Like I said, just country folks. Everyone's got their little drink and they're all sitting around. The kids are playing, the guys are telling lies and, you know, and all that. And, you know, standing around a pit and this and that and having a good time, you know, and a normal cook-off. I mean, you're setting up on Thursday or Friday, you're coming home Sunday. So it's an all weekend deal with your best buddies and your families. I mean, it's doesn't get much better than that.
Hey, Jason, that sounds like my family, man. Just insert a little bit of gumbo, some crawfish boils, and we got it cracking.
And it really is. That really is, truthfully, Ron Felder. If anybody knows Ron Felder, you know, he's the kindest, generous person I've ever met. And I will tell you, Phil, look, the cook-offs are 2 days, but I promise you, if you get there on the second day, that man ain't gonna have no food. Hey, I shit you not. I went up there, man. My chops. I was hungry. I was ready. I had blue with me. And I get there and I said, Ron, got some food. What you got in there? Man, it's all gone, bub. All the guys sort of scrap a brisket up in there. I'll go ahead and pull it up off the trash. I said, Ron, I want some brisket. Go pull that shit out the trash. It was still good as hell, Phil. I don't care. The food was good, but I'm just trying to tell you got to get there that first day. If you don't get the first day, it may not mean much left. I'm just trying to tell you. That's how good it is. But I don't want him to downplay. This guy's gone up against a really good competition. There was an event, KCBS. I don't know what that stands for, Ron. What does KCBS stand for?
Kansas City Barbecue Society.
Okay. He went to an event. Now, Phil, they had 7 to 10 of the top barbecuers in the world at this thing. I mean, this dude's gone up against some competition. Like I know we were talking about earlier, and you were asking me, like, was it this? I mean, he's gone up against the real deal. And when I can say, when he puts on an event, it ain't cheap. And I mean, what he's doing is not cheap by any means, by the imagination. But Ron, I mean, since we're kind of talking about, can you give us a little idea, just like briefly, like what exactly the routine looks like from start to finish when you're doing one of these cook-offs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, believe it or not, you know, like most people don't get to see, you know, everything behind the scenes, but it starts weeks in advance. You know, there's really only about, I mean, if we're talking competition, there's really only about 3 really, really good meat markets to choose from. And you really only have 2 barbecue supply stores and this and that. And if you've got a big enough, you know, if it was Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo cook-off coming up, you better be getting your supplies 3 months in advance, you know, because there's 300, 400 teams down there. And when they raid everything, you know, the week of or a couple weeks before, you're not going to get the pick of the litter on your brisket, on your ribs, on your chickens, on your supplies. And, you know, so we have one coming up, our hometown throwdown at EMC, September 6th and 7th. And me and my wife spent all weekend last weekend, 5 or 6 hours on Saturday, 5 or 6 hours on Sunday, pulling everything out of the barbecue trailer. I mean, everything going back in, and it's basically our checklist all the way down from water hoses to is the generator oil change. I mean, you know, all the behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees. You know, they show up and they smell the food and grab a cold beer, but they don't realize, I mean, we working like Hebrew slaves, you know, and
yeah, absolutely.
It all goes into it. I mean, all the way down to you know, in my free time, me and my wife, we'll make a ginormous checklist of them. We'll go down the list of everything we need, because in the competition barbecue world, I mean, you know, if you're at home, you could probably take an apron and a pair of tongs and you can cook some barbecue. And I'm sorry, it's not like that out there on the competition world. I mean, all the way down to specialty knives, specialty poultry shears, specialty electric knives, Then you have all the rubs, the sauces, the glazes, the woods, the lump charcoal, all the way down to the cutting boards, the temperature probes, butcher paper, aluminum. I mean, it's an 18-wheeler worth of stuff, you know, that we're dragging out there, you know, every weekend. And you know, we really make it a point that everybody feels at home, and we want everything first class. So you know, talking about money that's going into it, I mean, right now with that Bidenomics we got, which that's a different conversation there. I mean, we used to buy, you know, a 13 to 14 pound Wagyu brisket for $100. Well, they're $250 right now.
Yeah, right.
I used to buy a competition 4.5 pound chicken for about $7. They're $27. The same ribs and stuff that I was paying $7-8 a slab, I'm paying $30 a slab. So I mean, I used to do it all, you know, out of my own pocket, but I was real fortunate that I met people like you know, along the way. And as I met different people and they got on board to what I was doing, I mean, now I have some major companies that, you know, are just good-hearted people. And whenever I'm doing a cook-off, they're like, hey, come get a check. You know what I mean? And, you know, I got a lot of sponsor along the way. But you figure, back to your question, I will literally, for like EMC, I'll have to take off Thursday and Friday. And Thursday, I'll be on site at daylight, a full day of setup. Friday, now I'm back on site at daylight, another full day of setup, but now I've got the tent people out there. And then I go to prepping everything that I'm cooking Friday night. And, you know, so we're starting at daylight all day Friday cooking. And then,
Hey, Big Ron, quick question about that, right quick. So, if you could put like a number of hours to that setup process, right? Before you can even start cooking the food, how many hours you think you're putting towards your setup and prep work?
oh man, prime example, I'm gonna use the cook-off I have coming up for an example. I will start that Monday because I'm cooking jambalaya and dirty rice, and I'm feeding the masses. So, I mean, you're talking about, you know, all the prep work, going to Sam's and all your supply stores and all that for weeks. But when you get to the actual week of Monday, I've got about 40 pounds of onions and bell peppers and celery to chop to make the Trinity, homemade andouille sausage, homemade boudin, all the boudin balls. I mean, it's all week. I mean, I work a normal job, so does my wife, but that week, you know, Monday to Sunday, we might not sleep 10 hours in 7 days. I mean, it's a full production, you know. And you know, even worse than that, I've been playing music in bands my entire life. So at that one, I will literally not sleep Thursday night because I'm setting up, prepping. Friday, I'm cooking all day, feeding the masses Friday. Then I got to go put a guitar on, and my band's headlining that night. So then I'll go get off the stage at 10 p.m., come back, clean up everything from feeding 200 or 300 people. And then no one's there, and it's just me and my little old wife. Then we'll prep all the comp meat in the wee hours. By the time we finish that, I'm lighting the pit, putting my comp briskets on, and we're watching the sun come up Saturday morning, drinking coffee, just me and her.
That's
Then
insane.
we cook all day, turn in the comp meat on Saturday, feed all the leftovers to whoever's hungry. We get it all cleaned up Saturday night. Is when me and her will get to actually come home, take a shower, and then we go back, you know, Sunday morning and clean it all up. I mean, it's a 7 day. I mean, but we wouldn't change a minute of it. There's no cook team without my wife. You know, it's that's the reason why we chose that name, Family Tradition. I mean, it's me and her, and our son is 10 years old, and he's coming right up through the ranks, through the junior cook-offs and all that, and you know, he loves it. And you know, I'll tell you a quick story. We just did a cook-off a while back, and bless his heart, we didn't know, but all of our friends went to the local meat market and bought Wagyu ribeyes for the steak cook-off. And I just had a good old, ribeye from HEB. And I told him, my son's going to cook it. This is what he does in the junior comps. Well, that same schedule, he turns the steak in and so on and so forth. Well, here comes the awards, and bless his heart, he was done in. So he goes in there and takes the nap. And there was like 27 steak entries, and he wins it. And he's 10 years old in there, passed out in the trailer. I got to go wake him up with his trophy and tell him he doesn't beat all them grown men. But
the funny thing, like when you light your pit, you probably go there with some charcoal or light or whatever. I'm telling you, hey, when they light these pits, we got flamethrowers that you put on the damn propane tanks, and that's how you preheat your grill before you even get to the charcoal. You already preheated with the flamethrower.
I don't have a flamethrower, Jay. What you mean?
You got a flamethrower?
Nah, I got no flamethrower over here.
But yeah, and the funny thing about it was when I first started doing it, because Ron was telling me, yeah, man, use a flamethrower, heat up the pit real good. Man, we're out there with this flamethrower, man. I'm lighting all over this pit, right? And then I'm like, Ron, I can't get the son of a bitch over 220. What am I doing wrong? He's like, well, man, you're just doing it all wrong. First of all, you don't like the outside of it. You got to open up the lid and like the inside of it. And I'm thinking, oh, that just sounds so smart. Why wouldn't I think of that? Anyway,
But no, when I got into the competition side of it, man, I went a year hard, and I might walk or make final table or walk 9th or 10th or something in some small cook-off. And, it was really causing me mental problems because I knew how good my food was. And, there was a guy that, he really saw how much dedication I had and this and that. And he said, man, he said, I know that this is something that's important to you. And, this is something that you're wanting to pass down to your son on the competition side. He said, I'll take you under my wing and I'll show you what competition barbecue is. And I said, oh man, what do I need to do? And, he said, well, we'll just do a cook-off together and you'll do everything the way I tell you to do it and this and that. And his name was Brent Turner. And he had already won everything there was to win in barbecue. I mean, he's a world beater. I mean, he dominated competitive barbecue in our area for, 3 or 4 years. I mean, it was to the point that people were calling the sponsor of the event saying, is Cowboy and Angels cooking? And if they said, yeah, they would just pull out. They wouldn't even cook it. I mean, that's how dominant he was. And then his kids got older and started ball, and he just ran out of time for it. But long story short, we did a cook-off together, and he went, and I mean, he had the chicken, the ribs, and brisket, and he went step by step. This is what you do. And I watched him and been doing it that way ever since. The next thing you know, bam, 3rd place here, 2nd place there, grand champion here, blah, blah, blah. And I've met some, people that I've met Robert Smith several times. He's like a 6-time world champion. And I mean, you can sit there and watch him do everything. And you're just like, man, I'm watching a world champion, and he's just the nicest guy you ever met. And, I've sat there and watched Bill Purvis, chicken fried barbecue, and all the great people at Pitmaker in Houston. They just won grand champion at Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo this past year. That was the grand champion team, was Pitmaker. But they're just always so nice and so friendly. But I'll tell you, like anything else, if your heart's not in it, you're not going to enjoy it because there's so much work and money. I mean, I'll spend on like I said, an average deal, for not feeding the masses or nothing, just brisket ripping, chicken, supplies, and my entry is easily $1,500 to win a $150 trophy. You know what I mean? Like, there's never going to be the reward for what you put in it. So I made it personal. I brought the competition and the personal world together because while I'm there to compete with my peers and my fellow cooks, I'm also there to feed people that maybe they don't know no one, and in their spot that they can go in there. Maybe they're not financially able to buy a $30 ticket to somebody's booth on a Friday or Saturday night. Well, I don't care. You can come eat at my booth. You can walk right in and grab you something to drink and make you a plate. When it's gone, it's gone. But until it's gone, you can come, fellowship with us. And, so we merged the two, from the people to the competition, and that's really where we get our enjoyment, watching the smiling faces, eating what you've done, put your heart and soul into.
Right. And that's how it was for me, man. Like just to kind of like piggyback off of what you said, me and the wife, we used that pit twice before I actually entered in my first cook-off, which was just a neighborhood cook-off, which, by the way, Phil, they had a barbecue catering company that won first place, so I don't feel so bad about it.
It was real.
But the thing about it is, you're right, man. Like I know we did 12 hours on it, and we were rotating shifts. We were doing it together. It really was a great way to, blend your family and, like you said, family tradition, because it's like that. I mean, it really is. And it's a great experience, but there is a lot of work, more work than I ever thought. I just do it on a small level. A couple of briskets, a chicken, and a rack of ribs. And that I entered that in. But even with that, Phil, it was like, 2 days to prep and marinate and all that, and then you got a day to cook, and then you got another day because you got to clean all that mess up. I mean, there's so much that goes into it that I didn't realize. I mean, I was physically, Ron, when I was going to sleep and it was all said and done, I have never hurt so bad. I mean,
yeah.
I'd have my toenails, but I threw my toenails in with the food. So, I mean,
Well, you know what? And I guess that's to Ron's point too, right? Because like you said, you're putting all that work and time and energy and money into it to get 4th, 5th, or 6th place. You got to be passionate about that. You know what I mean? You got to be passionate about it. But so I'm going to ask you questions like, so let's say, okay, boom, you got your prep done. How do you go about choosing the right kind of charcoal, the right kind of wood pellets? Do you even use wood? Like, what do you prefer as far as preference wise? And how do you go about choosing the right stuff for the right meat?
Believe it or not, I mean, once you get on the competition side, you're going to find the cooking method that works best for you. Because you got your low and slow guys, you got your hot and fast guys, you got your power drinkers and your partiers and all that, but you're going to find what works best for you. And what works best for me is I'm a hot and fast kind of guy, but I've been doing it so long that, it's doing it the same way every time. So your times, I mean, it becomes like almost like, you're building a house. You start with the foundation, then it goes to the framing, then it goes to and I do it the same way every time. And it takes good equipment. I mean, I have a Jambo pit, and I don't have to sit there and monitor fire, but it's going to stay right where I set it. But I got to where, and this is where the differential, when you're in the backyard, growing up, and we had the old offset smoker, everyone's just throwing wood in there. You know what I mean? They're smoking the dog crap all out of this meat, On the competition side, appearance is everything. So now, you can't have a lot of smoke on there because it's going to darken your product. So now it's a total game changer, because now, everyone uses lump charcoal, and the lump charcoal provides your heat. You're just using a little bit of wood chunks or something like that just to give that little hint of flavor of smoke into your product. So, with my rubs and everything, it breaks it down by meat. To be honest with you, when I start out on the Jambo in the morning, it's my preparation is I look at when my ribs are done. I cook, the same amount every time. That's another deal. You only have so many CFMs of heat in a pit. It can be 300 degrees. That's fine, but it's only producing so much heat within that 300 degrees. And if I've got 2 briskets, 6 slabs of ribs, and 2 chicken on there, they're all fighting for that energy, that heat. So, I've done the same every time. I cook 2 brisket flats, and then flats are usually 7 to 9 pounds. I cook 4 slabs of ribs that have been cut down to 8 bones, and I cut 2 spatchcock chickens. So I've got 4 halves, and I cook the same thing every time. That way I know exactly how big to make my fire, exactly how much lump to use, exactly how much wood I need to put in there with the lump to get me the smoke that I need. And then I back calculate my favorite brisket, and what I've won the most with in brisket is when I use mesquite wood. Okay, that's a very dark smoke. That's going to give me my heavy charcoal, black crusty brisket, but you don't want mesquite on ribs or chicken. It's too dark of a smoke and it's too strong. It'll overpower the natural flavor of the pork and the natural flavor of the chicken. So I use hickory on my ribs mixed with a little bit of cherry to give it that redness for my ribs and chicken. So I literally will look and say, okay, rib turn ins at 1:30. I'm going to cook 4 slabs of ribs, start to finish, done, everything sauced, 3.5 hours. So I'll back calculate 3.5 hours. Well, I want to be wrapping my brisket, pulling it off that mesquite. The mesquite's burn out when I'm throwing a lump of hickory in there in the same pit on the same lump charcoal, laying my ribs in there. So it becomes a science. It really does. It really does, all the way down to what goes with what. I used a apple cherry habanero glaze on my ribs. Well, hickory and apple and pork has been going together for 100 years. You know what I mean? So you're never trying to reinvent the wheel. You're trying to enhance it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to take a concrete wheel and make it into a, Alcoa, if you will. But so I'm just trying to, they only allowed to take one bite barbecue. So you want, if it's a piece of brisket, you want the most beefiest, just that wow factor. So you don't want anything that's foreign to the beef. If it's ribs, you don't want anything that's foreign to ribs. So I stick with flavors that have went together forever, which is hickory, apple cherry, habanero, and then everyone can say what they want. Wagyu has taken over everything.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Even when I go to the store, I've noticed that.
I can literally, just mind that pit and never move. And I've got to be on my game to make a prime brisket from HEB or something like that really turn out. I could fall down, drop my Wagyu brisket, fall asleep 3 times, and the fire running all over the place, and still put a Wagyu brisket in the top 10. You know what I mean? It's just, you got to have good meat. And then, I only use one certain brand of ribs. I only use Prairie Fresh ribs. And then I'll only use either an air chilled chicken of some type. They sell those at HEB, or a Sanderson Farms, because they take to the injection so well and they hold their moisture. But it's a science. It really is. My favorite is B&B lump charcoal. Nothing's going to last as long as that. My grate can hold 12 pounds of lump charcoal. I put Royal Oak in there. It'll last about half the time as the same, comparison to B&B. And now, B&B makes a hickory lump charcoal,
wow, that's interesting.
Just like they make a mesquite lump charcoal, So
that's crazy.
I play around between the two, but I know with that Jambo, if I fill that thing up all 12 pounds, I can hold 325 degrees for about 9 hours, and I don't ever have to touch it.
That's a tough thing to do, to hold 325 for 9 hours without touching. That's hard. At least I know that.
Well, the deal is I never have to, doing the same thing the same way every time. So
right.
A dedicated time, I'm at 325. My 2 flats go on there. Well, I always take they've got probes in them, so I don't ever, why open the lid? Looking ain't cooking. I have no reason to look in there. I know what's going on in that smoke chamber. You know what I mean? And so I'm literally just doing other things and preparing my ribs, primarily when my briskets are on. And I've got that monitor right there, and it's showing me how each one of them is working. They both hit 155 degrees. Bam, it's time to wrap. I open the thing one time. They come off. They go over here for me and my wife to wrap them. I throw in the hickory, ribs go on. They're getting all the love from the fire, you know what I mean, all to themselves. But so I mean, it's that repetitiveness, and like anything else, you're cooking on something, I don't know, 50 to 75 times a year. You know what that pit's going to do. You know how it's going to perform every time. It's
Right.
instant firebox. I don't care if it's 20 degrees outside or 120. The pit's going to do its job every time.
It's like muscle memory.
Yes.
Question. On your how often when you put a brisket in there, how often are you basting it?
I don't.
You just put. So how do you keep it? How are you keeping it from drying out? Like, what are you doing that keeps it from drying?
It's the injections.
The injections. Okay.
Right. I mean, that goes back to the whole process there, because I only use. I mean, everyone has their favorite. I use Butcher Barbecue has a prime dust injection that. I mean, it is as beefy as I've ever tasted. I mean, you could bite a raw cow's ass and it not be more beefier than what and they have it broke down to such a science that I buy the barbecue phosphate. And I mean, it's all like chemistry class in there. So much phosphate to so much beef broth to so much prime dust. And when I inject it with the grain into that Wagyu brisket, I mean, I ain't lying. You've seen Jason. I mean, 2 or 3 hours after turn in. So that brisket that you ate that day was literally had been off my smoker 4.5 hours, and I could squeeze it and there was still juice coming out of the slice.
Yeah, it was.
That's the science of what I'm putting in it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're like, how is that brisket still that juicy? Because the injection and the phosphate, I mean, it's got chemicals in it. It's gonna hold, and it's no different with my chickens. I use a little phosphate when I inject my chickens, and that's the first category. So in IBCA, you're turning chickens in at noon. Well, the way I've always done it, after brisket turn in at 3, that's when I ring the dinner bell. So that chicken was done 4 hours before we're eating it, and it's sitting there room temperature. It's not even hot anymore, and I can go grab that breast and squeeze it, and that juice is running down my forearm, and everyone's just shaking their head like, how is that possible? That defies everything we know about chicken. And I'm like, well, that $20 bottle of phosphate I put in it, you know what I mean? Like,
I got a question for you, Big Ron. I got a question. So when it comes,
Phil, I think you froze up, Bubba.
He did.
It's all right. It happens from time to time. But yeah, I was wondering how you were keeping it from drying out if you're not opening up the pit. And now you're talking about the phosphate and the injections. That just opened up a whole new world.
It does, and I'm telling you, it's chemistry class in that pit. That's a lot of that behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees. If you open up my side door, I have that top shelf, above my prep table there, and I mean, there's a whole arsenal up there of injections and glazes and phosphate, and
right.
Then you have your stuff you make because you got to have a proper finishing dust that brings it all together. So my poor wife's over there with a spice grinder, and she's making my finishing dust. And I mean, whenever you wrap, there's only certain things that I put in there when I wrap a brisket, and I mean, it's so many little things, but it all comes together.
But it all adds up to that flavor profile.
It does.
Which, by the way, me and you will be making a trip out to Hempstead. You're going to have to show me all this phosphate and all this other stuff.
Oh, man. I love that place out there.
Ever since I saw that ever since you put that on Facebook, I was like, God, I want to go there. Because the whole thing is, Phil, imagine going into a store and everything around you is rubs and marinades and injections And I mean, just anything.
Everything.
Your mind will go. Phil, your mind's gonna go like this.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we got you now.
Hey, so yeah, my bad about that, guy. So Big Ron, right? So my wife, she loves fall off the bone ribs for some reason, which I don't mind. It tastes good, right? But when it comes to competition, what do they prefer, and how do you prefer your ribs?
Believe it or not, I mean, if I'm at home, yeah, fall off the bone ribs is great. If you're in competition, they're going to you're going to get a lower score if they're fall off the bone. You want that perfect bite. You know, if you take a bite and you can't see the half moon of your teeth where you bit into, and if it's coming off everywhere else and all that, they're overdone. They're going to mark against you. You know, and then you hear everybody talking about, well, I pulled my ribs at this temperature, or I pulled my brisket at that temperature. I have never in my life went by a temperature. It's all by feel. Um, you know, when I reach in there and I probe one of them ribs, I can just tell how that probe goes in there, you know, that's it, you know. And again, back to what I said a while ago, it's all in your process. You know, I'm hot and fast. I put on those 4 slabs of ribs. It's maybe an hour. They're already ready to wrap. Takes me about 15 minutes to wrap them, get them back on. And then I know from the time I put them back on, I'll ask my wife, what time is it? Because exactly 1 hour later, I'm opening them up and I'm checking that first slab because they're going to be either done or within 10 minutes of being done. And so it's again, you're going through your processes. And, you know, you if you're at home, if I'm at home, I mean, I don't use nothing in my barbecue trailer when I cook for my family, literally nothing. I use completely different rubs, sauces, everything. It is completely different. And here I make everything fall apart, you know. But yes, in competition, they will actually count. And same thing with your brisket. You have I'm sure y'all have heard the pull test in brisket. You know, they're going to pick it up and they're going to drape it over a knife or whatever and make sure the bottom touches. And then they're going to go to separate it apart. And if it's just falling apart, it's overcooked. They're going to, you know, you definitely, I mean, in comp, over tender will always score better than under tender. Always. I mean, you'd rather it be, you know, too tender than tight, you know, brisket or your ribs. But, you know, you can go over in both. And, you know, and a big thing in competition is literally just getting lucky. There's so much luck involved. You know, the beauty of the CBA, the Champions Barbecue Alliance, and what I really enjoy about them and the way they run everything is their judges leave comments, you know, on your paperwork. So, you know, let's say I'm number 25 or whatever. Whenever it's over, I can go to my representative and say, hey, I was number 25. They're going to hand me the number 25. Now, the judges didn't know who number 25 was, but I know I'm number 25. And I can go through there and read their comments. Little too much smoke. Sauce was a little heavy. You know, a little too spicy, a little too sweet. And I can read it, you know, and then I study what them judges are saying, like, you know, anybody would. You know, they're literally telling you what they're looking for. Then the next weekend when you're back out there, you know, you'll take a little smoke out, you know, or whatever you know, had got dinged on the week before, and then you'll read those judges what they had to say. Flavor was spot on, tenderness was spot on, just the right amount of smoke, and you get a really high score, and then you're like, okay, I'm adjusting my recipe now on the fly, you know.
Yeah.
I cook the same way no matter what. And I mean, I'll cook at the local VFW for something and I'll hear how spicy my food is and go right down the road the next day or the next weekend to the next cook off and win grand with the exact same everything I just turned in the week before. So you take the good with the bad. But you know, I'm 42 years old, and at this stage of my life, I mean, you know, I have friends and people in the comp barbecue world that, they're chasing their next grand championship. But I do have a couple of bucket list things that I'm wanting to do before I hang it up one day. But in all honesty, it's all about my family and my son at this point. I told him when he gets 16, I'm giving him my big trailer that I have now, and I'll be like Myron Mixon on pit matches. I'll just be pointing that finger. You know what I mean? Sauce this, season that. You know what to do, boy. You know what I mean? And I'll just be kicking back, watching him because, my greatest cook-off I ever had was there's 180 teams one year and hold 'em and hit 'em, and I won second in ribs, and then I won second in chicken. So that was like a $2,500 day and all that. But watching my son win, I don't care if he wins 10th in a pork chop competition with him kid, man, I'm jumping up and down like we're at the Houston Livestock Show rodeo cook-off. I mean, watching him, that's what I'm about. Personal accolades, people know me as the face of the team, but my wife, she's the unsung hero. It's like a doctor and a nurse. She knows what I'm going to need before I even need it. Where's this at? She's already got it in her hand. We've done so many of them together, and if she's not going to be there, I just soon not cook. It's not any fun to me without her. She's the glue that puts it all together, and hence the name, family tradition. If my family ain't there, I don't care about doing it.
It's interesting, something as simple as a trailer and a barbecue pit and some meat and all the memories and the bonds that you're creating with your kid, with your wife. That's really extremely therapeutic as well as something you like to do.
Oh, absolutely. And my bucket list deal is maybe as early as next year. We're going to go out, and I started another job, or it would have been this year, but I told them come hell or high water next year, I'm going to do it. But on Saturday, they have the American Royale Invitation at the Kansas City Motor Speedway. And then Sunday is the Open, which means anybody can cook it. And it's gotten up to 600 teams now. But I told her, and you have to pull in on Friday, even though you might only be cooking on Sunday, your stuff has to be there on Friday. So I've got to miss Thursday and Friday and Monday and Tuesday, but I don't care. I'm going to cook the American Royale next year, on that Sunday with my wife and my son, just to say I did it,
absolutely.
And the way you make the invite list to cook Saturday is a team cook-off, whether it be IBCA or CBA, has to have over 75 teams to be called a qualifier. And if you get reserve or grand, then you get an automatic invitation into the American Royale. And if you win 7 grand champions in the course of a year in any district or whatever, you get invited to the Jack Daniels, World Championship. I'll never have the ability to win 7 grands just because with work and my son's baseball and all that, I don't get to cook, but maybe a cook off every 2 months, I just flat out don't have the time to do what it takes to, be on that level with those guys. But next year we're going to Kansas City. I promise you, I put it off long enough.
Absolutely.
Hey, so Big Ron, I got one more question for you, then we get ready to close out. So what can you tell us average Joes at home? How can we take our average barbecue at home and make it worthy of competition style? What's tips you got for us?
Let me think. What would be, believe it or not, and it's gonna kill me to say this, and this is where 90% of average Joes mess up. So, and that's fire management. So to take that out of the equations, I tell everybody, go buy you a pellet cooker. Believe it or not, because okay, 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago, you were laughed at if you cooked on a pellet smoker. Well, I know world champions cooking every weekend, day in and day out, winning all this money. They cook on pellet cookers because there's no fire management. If I put it on 300, it's going to run 300 unless the power goes out. You know what I mean? So it takes all of that out of play. Because when you were kids, you'd get over there near fire. How did everyone do? It'd go 300. Then you'd open that big old steel door to look at your meat, and then you'd shut the door, and it might take 30 minutes to get back to 300. And that meat's just sitting there. Well, now, I mean, you open a pellet cooker, do what you need to do, you shut the door, and in 30 seconds, you're at 300 again. So, I mean, I would say start there. I mean, because if you start there, the rest just all kind of take care of itself. You're going to know that, okay, my fire's the same every time. And I know if I get a brisket that's about this size, every time, it's going to take this long before I wrap it. It's going to take about this long after I wrap it. And you'll slowly see yourself, getting into your own wheelhouse, if you will. Like your own style is going to start forming. Okay, I'm used to cooking this size brisket. I'm used to cooking, this many amount of ribs on my pellet smoker or whatever, and you'll come up with, you're gonna fall into where, like my brother got into it a couple of years ago. Every Saturday and Sunday he was cooking, and it was a total different flavor profile. He had watched some barbecue. Well, he uses this. Well, he uses that. Well, he uses this, and you're going to go through 100 different seasonings, and all of a sudden you're going to find your wheelhouse. That this is, based on the way you start to learn to cook, this is what you like to do, and this is what you like it to taste like. And I would say start there. Because fire management, you can look at Aaron Franklin, you can look at, any of these world-renowned, pit masters. They all are going to have a whole starting speech about fire management. So to take that out of a newcomer or somebody wanting to get into backyard or competition, take that out of the equation and get you something that's going to cook repetitive every time. And people can't go out and just buy a $10,000 Jambo, you know what I mean? Or a, $4,500 pit maker vault that'll sit there at $275 for 14 hours, on an 8-pound bag of lump charcoal. So, but I can go to Academy and get me a little basic Timberline Traeger or something like that for $300-400. And if I set it on 275, it's going to sit on 275 all day long. And you've eliminated what used to be easily 60 to 70% of the problem, of the downfall of the common cook. So I'd say start there.
And that really is a good point, fire management, because I'm telling you, Phil, it's not going to put that pellet smoker at a degree you can walk away from it versus having 2 lawn chairs out there by a smoker and your cell phone. I mean, just waiting for time to go by. It is a game changer.
You got to think. I mean, I'll close with this. It has been confirmed that, once a brisket gets to 150 to 160 degrees, it's absorbed all the smoke it will ever absorb. Well, right. Now they literally have wireless probes called a meter. So I can turn my pellet grill on 300 degrees and it has a wireless. The meter goes to my iPhone. And I stick that meter in that damn brisket and I slap that brisket on that pellet grill and I walk away. I know where my fire is and I can sit there and do other things around my house and just glance at that app on my phone. Oh, my brisket internal is 155. I guess I'll go wrap it now. Then I go out there and wrap it in pink butcher paper, little spritz on that. And then all of a sudden, I set an alarm on my app on my phone. So when it hits 205, it goes off. Your phone will go off like an alarm. You look down, my brisket's at 205. You walk back out there and the tenderness is almost perfect. You know what I mean? It took all of the things and hardships that we all saw growing up in the backyard technology. You know what I mean? Now you got guys in the backyard that, they can really throw down on a barbecue pit because they have, the technology. So, and in 10 years, it'll be even further. You know what I mean?
You have self-cook pits.
So Phil, the takeaway for you and the common smokers is go get your pellet grill, get you a nice good rub, and Yeah, you're good. You'll look like a champion. Be great.
That's it. That's it.
Hey, look, like you said, Ron.
I will tell you, Phil, I saw this man play in a band one time, and the guitar was it looked like he was playing Guitar Hero.
That's it.
Like
ukulele.
His hand goes all the way over the neck, and I'm like, how is this guy even playing this guitar right now? Because his hands are like literally like twice wrapped around the guitar neck. It was the craziest thing. But Ron, before we get out of here, is there any social media that you guys are using that you want to plug?
No, I mean, we don't even do all of that. I mean, I don't even have a Facebook page actually dedicated to our cook team. It's all word of mouth. I mean, anywhere we go, we usually cook about the same 15 cook-offs every year, and everyone knows us. And we've got friends and stuff that, I mean, you actually look forward to cooking those cook-offs because you spend those with your close friends and you're competing. Like they're your enemy that weekend, but, you know, you have fun with them. But no, I've never even made a social media, you know, on just the cook team.
Well, hey, Ron, if you ever need to promote something, you got a home here with us at Whiskey Hour, man.
That'll work. That'll work.
I'm telling you, hey, I want to hear all the good stuff right here first, man. I don't want to be turning on somebody else's talk. I better hear it here first, Ron.
There you go.
Where you came from.
That's it. I won't.
I will say this, though. If you guys go on Facebook and if you just Google in the hourglass or wherever that little thing is, Family Tradition, it will come up and you'll see his stuff. He has a Facebook page called Family Tradition, so it'll pop up if you guys want to keep tabs on Ron Felder and what he's doing in the barbecue world. All right, Phil, get us out of here, bro.
Hey, and once again, we have Big Ron Felder of Family Traditions here on the Whiskey Hour podcast. You can find us at the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Big Ron. I think I've become a 10 times a better cook just from this one podcast episode, man. So we appreciate you.
No problem. Thank y'all.
All right, y'all have a great day, people.